Did you? Like anybody here, if you were like, yeah, I was thinking we'd do Supertramp. Yeah. All right, I just got to take a breath down from that, man. I was dancing a lot. So my hands are clapping. Well, our Sunday lesson today is on the power of belonging. The power of belonging. Desmond Tutu, who's a South African activist, he talks about Ubuntu meaning I am because we are. And he says this is like the most beautiful description I've ever seen about being in sacred community. He says, we believe that a person is a person through other persons, that my humanity is caught up, bound up inextricably with yours. When I dehumanize you, I dehumanize myself. The solitary human being is a contradiction in terms. Therefore, you seek to work for the common good because your humanity comes into its own in community, in belonging. In belonging, that's what we're here to do. There's a story that goes along with this, and it's about this anthropologist going into an African village, and he's living there with the families and the people and just learning about them. And he decides one day he's going to set up this competition for the kids. And so he sets up this really beautiful basket with all kinds of treats in the basket that kids would love. He tells the kids, all right, we're going to have a race, and whoever wins the race gets the basket. So the kids are like, well, all right, sounds like fun. So they all line up at the starting line. He shows them where the finish line is. He does the whole on your mark, get set, go, right? The kids, instead of the older, faster kids just bolting right out there to win, they all grab hands and they ran together. And so he was kind of like, okay, that was interesting. So they all got to share in the basket, but he asked them, why did you all do that? And one of the children said, well, how can one of us be happy if everybody else is sad?
That's right.
Right? Oh. You know, right in our nature, in our heart, is the hunger to belong, the hunger to nurture and care for each other. Like cooperation is the heart of our nature, not competition. Think about everything that comes along when we're taught competition. We're taught to feel shame if we don't win. We're taught to feel like a failure, like we're not good enough if we don't win. And then if we do win, we feel like we always have to keep winning or we won't be good enough. So competition is not the heart of our nature. Cooperation is. So what is the power of being in a sacred community? Like what is the power of belonging and setting the intention to create a sacred community? We learn 3 things when we make the intention to create a sacred community. We learn faith. Once we learn faith, then we can learn to live authentically. And then when we're learning to live authentically, that's when we can be of service. Now I'm going to say service, not servitude. So, sometimes when I bring up to people, it's like, oh yeah, are you looking for a way to be of service? It's like, no, I don't want to do hard, dirty things. That's servitude. That's servitude. Like when we feel like we have to do something or somebody won't like us and we don't like it, and that's not fair. That's servitude. Service. We are only of service when we walk in faith, because walking in faith, then we get to live authentically, which is about calling forth the gifts of God through us and into our lives for the benefit of ourselves and others. That's what service is. Calling forth the gifts of God through us and into our lives for the benefit of others. So to walk in faith, I got all fancy with the projector thing. Right? I almost was like going a little too nuts, but okay, so what's happening when we're learning to walk in faith? A lot happens because creating a sacred community rests on this principle: God is all things. Like to create a sacred community, that's where we go first. God is all things. Because if we're not thinking about that, how everything comes from God, and we all are existing in the allness together, then we can't walk in faith if we cannot do that, because if we're not walking in faith, we're walking by sight. If we're walking by sight, we're looking at conditions that we don't like. And some of these conditions might scare us or make us worry. And so we're not in faith if we're feeling scared and worried and keep pointing at that condition thinking, it needs to change so that I can be happy. When we walk in faith, we embody our great I am consciousness. Or in Unity, we call it the Christ consciousness. But the I am consciousness is our creator consciousness when we are allowing that power that creates worlds to work through us and through our life and go out into the world. So when we walk by faith and we are embodying our great I am consciousness, what we're learning to do and what makes this easier and easier to do all the time is we're seeking the truth of God in all things. So if we're in faith and we're, yes, I'm embodying my Christ nature, and then we look at a condition, we don't see the problem. We ask the question, I wonder how solutions could come through here. I wonder how the activity of God could show up in this condition. Now, this is why teacher Yeshua, and I say Yeshua, there's no letter J in Hebrew, Greek, or Latin, so I don't know where that came from, actually. Teacher Yeshua, he said that he came to give us our greatest commandments ever. The greatest commandment is that we must love God with all of our heart, our soul, our mind, and our might, or strength. Sometimes it's defined as strength. And then love our neighbor as ourselves, right? And so that takes a lot of might to actually do that. And so I had to discover that there's like a little secret in here. To love God, it's not about love like we think of love in human terms. I love ice cream, I love my kids, Sty Daddy, I love you, thank you for summertime, or whatever. Love is honoring that we come from something greater than ourselves, and we respect ourselves because we come from something that is so great and infinite. We honor, love, and respect the source that created all things. We love, honor, and respect ourselves as its creation. So now you know why you have to use all of your might, because we do things like not honoring it. And when we say things like, well, this isn't right, or, I'll never be able to handle this, or, I can't get this done, I'm not smart enough, or, like, it's hard, and I don't know how I would do it, and everybody else could do it, but not me. And when we do that, when we put ourselves down, we are disrespecting the power that creates worlds. We're disrespecting the power that creates worlds that created us along with all of that. That takes a lot of might. It takes a lot of consciousness and awareness to keep reminding ourselves, wait, I was created by the power that creates worlds. I need to treat myself a little better here. I need to speak more highly of myself, right? The I am. That's why we call it the great I am consciousness. I am what? I am an infinite being in a body. I am capable. I can be solution-oriented. I am the way of the living God to come out in this world. So we use all of our might because we have to learn to master those thoughts that don't do us any good, those thoughts that put us into worry and doubt and lack and limitation. And we're making the choice over and over again, all right, do I want to be in faith or do I want to walk by sight? Right? Do I want to be really worried about all this stuff? No, I'm choosing to be solution-oriented. I am going to choose. Even though it's going to take all my might, God is all things, and that means me, and that means the conditions out there. So I'm not going to focus on the condition. Instead, I'm just going to let myself open to faith and let solutions present themselves to me, however that may be. So the love your neighbor as yourself thing. Really, once we're good at, loving ourselves and treating ourselves as the creation of that power that creates worlds, to love our neighbor as ourselves, then what we're doing is we love, honor, respect the power, the all that created the all. Then we love, honor, and respect ourselves as its creation. And then our neighbor, which is everybody in a body that's not our body, we love, honor, and respect that power that created all things and our neighbor as its creation. Right? All our might. All our might. So you can see, all relationships are sacred. All relationships teach us to see God. They teach us because when we're judging someone or pointing our finger at someone, thinking about that person you didn't vote for and getting all like worked up, well, you know what that feels like. That's conflict. So we know we're not seeking the truth of God in that person. We're not loving God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and might. So it's like, okay, I can change my mind right now. We can always change our mind. Now, when we're walking in faith, then the next thing we do is we get to live authentically. And we live authentically because when we're walking in faith, we listen to divine direction, and then we take action based on that divine direction that's telling us to do the next best thing in our life, or the next right thing. Because we're in faith, we have courage to do that thing. Where often it's out of our comfort zone, so it feels a little scary. And if we're not in faith, what we might say is, well, I don't know, it seems kind of hard. I don't know that I could do that. Maybe that's for somebody else to do and create, but I don't know about me. I could just need to think about it in front of Netflix for a couple hours. Right? When we're walking in faith, we know, like if we're given direction, we know we can do it. And we know we can do those hard things because there is something greater at work in us. And it knows what to do and how to do it. And it compels us to act on what it knows. So when we're expressing our authentic self, which is our brightest self, right, in any moment, that's our brightest self, the self that we want to be showing to the world, that sometimes we think, well, I don't know, if I do that, people might think I'm silly or weird. And when we are in faith, we don't care what other people think because we're not going to take it personally. And so we express our brightest self and we do the things that we're excited about doing. And then this leads to us getting to be of service. In the book of Romans, it says, none of us lives to himself alone. We are here to be of service to each other. Now, I'm gonna share a quick story from mythology, and it's about the centaur Chiron. Chiron was born, his father was Cronus, his mother was Phileras. And his conception came from an obsessive, dangerous, violent relationship. And so Cronus, of course, he was known as the god who ate his babies after they were born. And in the story, he was actually like searching for Hercules, I think, or Zeus. Maybe it was Zeus who was a baby too, to eat Zeus. So Cronus just wasn't a good guy in this story. But his mother, when she gave birth to the centaur, she didn't want him. She didn't want a baby centaur. And so Chiron was abandoned by both of his parents. So he has the original abandonment wound. Like the worst wound a child can experience. So there's that wound that he's walking around in this world with. Now luckily he meets Apollo. And Apollo is the god of music, arts, healing, poetry. And so Apollo loves him like a father. So he's like a foster father. And Apollo shares all his knowledge with him. And so Chiron does grow up, under the mantle of a male father figure. And then, he's friends with Hercules. Now, Hercules is involved in something. And Hercules doesn't normally like centaurs, but he likes Chiron, they're friends. But there was something happening, and it involved some wine. And Chiron shows up, and Hercules accidentally shoots him with an arrow that's been dipped in the blood of the Hydra. Shoots him in the leg. And again, it was the wine, I'm sure. He wants to shoot somebody. Now, Chiron is half mortal, half immortal. So he can't die from the wound, but the wound won't heal either. And so he's walking around in this world now suffering. So he starts seeking. What can I do to heal my wound? What can I learn that will heal my wound? And he seeks and finds out so much stuff. He gathers so much new information. He learns a lot, but he's never able to heal himself. Sometimes he can use his information to heal other people, but he's never able to heal himself. Now this is our dilemma. You could say we're half mortal, half immortal when we're focused on what's wrong, and I'm going to seek all this information because I want to heal this whatever is wrong with me. And you know what? A lot of us, we're dealing with an original wound, right? From childhood, like something. Now Chiron, what happened is Chiron just finally gave up. He knew he wasn't going to heal. He heard about Prometheus, the god who brought fire to humanity. And Prometheus was being punished by Zeus. And he was on this mountain, and every day an eagle would rip out his liver and eat it, and then it would regrow overnight, and then the next day the eagle would rip out his liver and eat it. Chiron found out that if he were to go and replace Prometheus, then Prometheus would be free. But it had to be somebody who was immortal, or half immortal. So Chiron goes up there to the mountain and frees Prometheus. The eagle kills Chiron then, and Chiron is free, finally. He's finally free. He gets to go to Hades, and he's free of the wound, he's free of the pain, free of the suffering. But Zeus is like, what? Why did he choose to do that? Because Zeus didn't have really a thoughtful, giving bone in his body, right? Zeus was just always playing with humanity for his own entertainment. But he decided he was going to turn Chiron immortal. So Chiron became immortal, got his own constellation. Chiron healed when he sacrificed himself for someone else. Okay, when he gave the ultimate thing somebody could give to help another person. And so that's how we are able to move into service. We are not here to just learn stuff to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. I did this. I did this for so many years. I collected a bunch of certificates on all these different modes of healing that I never use now. I'm just like, well, there's another certificate that didn't solve all my problems, right? So I just collected them. Again, I'm sorry about all the money you spent. But see, we're not here to just live for ourselves and gather information for ourselves. We are here to be giving with each other also. But see, the best way to be of service, the only way to truly be of service, is to walk in faith, live our authentic, brightest self, so that what we are calling forth and giving to everyone else are the divine gifts of God that are meant to be coming through us. When we're of service, we're recognizing God is in all things. Right? God is in all things. So through our acts of service, this is where we stand shoulder to shoulder with each other and lift each other up. So we're lifting each other up. So faith, authenticity, and service, right? We're calling forth that power that creates worlds. Think about this, that power that creates worlds, that creates universes, put us here so we could learn to manage our own little universe of our life. We're here to learn to manage our own life. And if that power that creates universes can do it, and we're a little expression of it, everything we need is within us to be able to do that. So what happens if we're not in a sacred community? So now we know what going in sacred community makes us really walk in faith, and we get to express our authentic self, and we get to give of ourselves in the best way. But it's not always easy to get into sacred community, because of the thought process maybe that we're in. So what happens when we cannot find a sacred community to belong to because our need to be part of a community is so strong, we might find ourselves joining special interest groups. Now, there's nothing wrong with a special interest group. And a lot of people like special interest groups because we can fake our way into one of those, right? Nobody in the special interest group needs to know about our deep wounding that we're trying to figure out. And they're not going to kick us out if they find out about it because we don't have to share that with them to be part of a special interest group. So special interest groups are okay, but they're not going to hold us in the circle of belonging if we change our mind about their belief system. I used to be, when my son was born, brand new mom, I used to go to the La Leche League groups, which is a breastfeeding support group for new moms. And, everybody there was really nice. But one time a gal came in and she showed up, she had her kids, and she announced right off the bat, well, I'm not breastfeeding, I just give everybody the bottle. And the mamas in that room, I was just I was even in my head thinking, I wouldn't have come in here and said that, not out loud. And I was part of a special interest group a few years ago. And when I joined, Because, like, I can be kind of outgoing, and they were all like, oh, Deanna, like, she's a rock star, right? But then one night, they were talking about something, and I disagreed. I disagreed with them. And they were just like, what? I only lived like 2 minutes away from that place. By the time I got home, they pretty much, all of them had unfriended me on Facebook already. Right? A special interest group. There's nothing wrong with being in a special interest group. I know people who are part of La Leche League, and that's all that they talk about. Or join political groups, but that's all that they're focused on. Or groups that are helping the homeless, or anything. There are all kinds of special interest groups out there. But if you change your mind, if you speak out against what they're doing, like, why would they? They're not going to want you in that group. You're going to be shunned. You're going to be like, well, go someplace else if you don't believe like us. We're not being held in the loving arms of community when we do that, when we join that group just to be part of community. Special interest groups, we can change our mind about those things. And when we lay our body down at the end of this life that we're living right now, none of that matters anymore. The part that matters is the part of us we've put into a sacred community, walking in faith and living authentically and being of service. That is what the soul desires, because that gives the soul new experiences all the time. That is what we take with us when we lay this body down. Not how we eat or vote or pray or love, right? That just stays here. So what happens that makes us want to join a group where we're not really being held in the circle of belonging, where we can fake our way in and not share what we're really going through with anybody and just nod our heads? What makes us want to join that group? And usually it's a lack of faith. If we're not in faith, we're not trusting what it is that works through us, for us, as us. If we're not trusting what works through us, for us, as us, we're not taking action on doing the next right thing that could actually be the thing that changes our life or changes the life for other people, then we're not being of service. So if we can't be our authentic self through walking in faith, we're not going to feel safe. Right? And so that's why we might choose someplace to go where nobody has to hear us talk. We can just smile and nod our head, and at least we're in a group of people, right? And again, our need to belong is very strong, right? Our need to belong is very strong. Sacred community is the antidote to the feeling of not belonging. Because you have to walk in faith. And that's it, faith. I talk about faith all the time because when you have big faith, you have a big life. When you have faith, you're expanding your own territory. You expand, and our territory is the place where we have influence. Our territory is the place where we are able to do more good in this world. But we have to be in faith to do all that. So here's our call to action. And I have an affirmation, and I love this affirmation. I am a blessing to others by being myself. Let's say it together. I am a blessing to others by being myself. Being our authentic self, being our brightest self, and then allowing ourselves to be of service, allowing those gifts of God and grace to come through us and out into our territory. This is an act of faith. Faith is what helps us to create a bigger life. But faith always requires big action. That's why it's faith. If it's not a big action, although I will say this, you have taken an act, you've stepped into an act of faith before. You've taken an action totally based on faith, and you did it. And it might have been hard, it's probably a little bit scary at least. But somebody else might see that and think, oh my God, I could never do that. But now you're thinking, well, I did it. It was really, after I was all done, it was no big thing. But faith will always require us to take an action and be a bigger version of ourselves than we were. Because when we're taking a step of faith, we have to expand ourselves to step into that faith. We have to be bigger than our fears. We have to be bigger than our beliefs and our limitations. We have to be bigger than our doubts and our worries. So faith requires a big action. We have to do bigger, right? It's not okay to wait until Monday to get started. It's not okay to wait until summertime to get started. Be that person right here and now that you dream of being, because that person's already within you. And all you need, the faith, is what sets that person free. So do bigger right now. Be bigger by going ahead and just doing those things that you think you're not capable of doing. Like, I'm just going to do it anyway. I mean, if I fail, I fail. It means I'll just try it again. Right? Didn't, like, Colonel Sanders have, like, 90 rejections or fail, or like 170 or something? Right? Like, and that guy kept going. Because he knew that he was bigger than that man who was not willing to go out there and do that hard work. He knew he was bigger than that man. We give bigger. We give bigger now. We don't give what's just comfortable. That's not in faith. We don't do what is comfortable. That's not in faith. Right? That's not faith. Faith is getting a little uncomfortable. Faith is doing something that's a little bit scary. So in this shelter of belonging that we create, what happens when we are creating a sacred community, we're communing with God. That's what we're doing. We're communing with the God force. In community, we experience ourselves in a bigger way, and we create things in a bigger way. That's what we do in community. And what's nice is that, like in a spiritual community like this, like, we're not focused on beliefs or not. I'll tell you, there are a lot of different political beliefs in this room. And, like, I don't even care. Because that's something that gets left here on the planet when we all lay down our bodies. Right? We're connecting over something bigger than that. We are connecting over calling that grace forth through us. We're connecting over how we can be a love amplifier in our lives. Right? We're connecting over the stuff that really, really matters. So this is how we are creating, like, this amazing community. And it doesn't matter what other people's beliefs are, because when we seek the truth of God in all things, we don't have to judge other people. If we're judging people, we're, like, not in faith. We're not in faith, we're in conflict. We're not in our Christ consciousness if we're busy pointing our finger and blaming or complaining about somebody. We're in our Christ consciousness when we just seek the truth of God in all things and in all people, and we accept, everybody's on their own journey, and we don't really know how the activity of the universe is unfolding through other people. Like, they're in the right place at the right time for their journey. And when we are practicing the art of being in sacred community, we just honor that. We don't pick it apart. We don't have to write them a letter, right? We just honor that. John O'Donohue, who's the author, his most famous book, I think, is Anam Cara, but this is from the book Eternal Echoes. Take this in. Perhaps community is a constellation. Each one of us is a different light in the emerging collective brightness. A constellation of light has greater power of illumination than any single light would have on its own. Right now something really great is being created through all of us. I've had over the last couple of weeks people reaching out to me asking, like, how do I do to feel better about what's going on globally? I'm afraid. And I'm like, well, I get that. But this is the thing. If we want to have an impact globally, hating other world leaders is not going to impact the world in a good way. If we're hating how someone else is doing something, if we are hating and judging, we're sending hate mail through the internet, right? And that's poison. That's poison. And you know where the poison, it starts spreading from us. So we're experiencing the poison in our own life, right? We're not sending grace with those prayers where we're thinking, man, I wish this guy would die, right? We're not sending grace with those prayers to have an impact. We want to remember, okay, you're the strongest when you're in community. You are the strongest when you are creating, and you are the strongest when you are focusing on lifting others up. So seeking the truth of God in all things, walking in faith. I may not know what's going on the other side of the planet, but I trust the activity of God because it's everywhere present, and because God is all things, that means The presence of God is on the other side of the planet. And if I just keep reminding myself the presence of God is way smart and has way smart people over there to work through, I'll just send grace. Because I don't know. I don't know what to do about all that. I will send grace in my prayers. Dear Mother, Father, God, please just shower everyone involved in grace. And grace is the part of source energy that gives us exactly what we need. Hope, courage, solutions, ideas. That's what we need to be spreading around right now is grace. Grace. So this is what we're doing here. Peace on earth starts with us. We need to make sure, this is vitally important, that we are not standing in a pool of our own poison. Right? Peace on earth starts with us. We become that grace amplifier. We recognize God is in all things, even the things I don't understand, even the things that are worrying me right now. God is in all things. And we call forth that grace. We call forth that power that creates worlds to work in all situations. And this is how we stand shoulder to shoulder. Let there be peace on earth. That starts with each of us. With all of our might, focusing on the power of God, working through all things. With all of our might, changing our consciousness from a lack, fear-based consciousness to a love, compassion-based consciousness. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. That is how we are creating heaven on earth. So, until next time, remember, you are divinely designed to be doing all this stuff. You're designed for it. Like, it's hard, but, you know, it's going to be hard if we're not used to doing it. All change is hard. Like, if change was easy, we'd already all have accomplished our New Year's resolutions. Right? But you are divinely designed to do all this, and everything you do, you are blessed, and so it is.
Amen.
Amen. All right, we have a meditation song for you.